Well, what do you cultivate? Well, now, don't lose Job. We're going to spend the whole time in Job, but I want to just show you a New Testament. A lot of people get real uncomfortable in the Old Testament. You shouldn't. But look in Acts chapter 6 and verse 4, so that those of you that feel uncomfortable in the Old Testament can feel comfortable. We're in the New Testament, okay? No. Someone, I do question and answers all the time. I was doing one with a college group, and they asked me a question, very practical, relevant, cultural question. And I said, well, in Leviticus 19, and they raised their hand, they said, we don't want to hear that because nothing in the Old Testament affects us. We're in the New Covenant. I said, okay. I said, let me ask you New Covenant Christians one question. Is God immutable? You know what immutable means? Doesn't change. God doesn't change. If God said in the Old Testament something is an abomination to Him and that it is a horrible sin in His sight, do you mean it's not anymore? God changed? Think about that. Think about it. The Old Testament is actually the illustrations. It's like pictures of the doctrines of the New Testament. Now, no, we don't fail to eat shrimp because they weren't supposed to, but the reason they weren't supposed to is because they lived in the desert and the shrimp were bottom feeders, and they still are. And I won't even tell you what the Seventh-day Adventists say shrimp eat, but they do eat it, and it's on the bottom, and it would have made them sick to have it. And God had a lot of reasons to keep them from being like the people, the Canaanites around them. But whatever God said is an abomination, such as homosexuality, which is cover to cover in the Old Testament, abominable to God, and He says no practicing homosexual will dwell in heaven forever. He hasn't changed at all, a bit. And you have to think about that, because what we're seeing on signs is, there's a big billboard in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that says, if Christians shop on Sunday and eat bacon, how come homosexuality is wrong? What they're saying is it's in the Old Testament, so it shouldn't be wrong. But I'm not preaching on that. So let's just talk about the New Testament. Okay, chapter 6, verse 4. This is the apostles talking about how to cultivate prayer. And this is what they said. But we will give ourselves. Now, I'm not sure what version you're reading from, but there should be a word similar to the fourth word in. But we will give, I'm reading New King James, ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word. Now, first of all, the first thing I notice is the order. Did you notice what they said they do before they do the ministry? They do what? Prayer. Now, Jesus said something similar in Matthew chapter 4 in the temptation. He said, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and Him only shalt thou what? Serve. Do you know what comes before ministry and before service? Prayer and worship. And so, how do you get into this kind of prayer? Well, this word give, it speaks of the choice. It's a very interesting word. In fact, if we were to translate this Greek word into modern English, it would be translated S-U-P-E-R space G-L-U-E. Because that's what this word means. Super glue. The word is pros kartereo. And what it means is to stick as close as possible and adhere to. Isn't that what super glue is? In fact, when I used to make models, I would get glue and I would not want it to ruin it. So I'd go like this and I would forget and I didn't move my finger away and my finger would stick as close as possible and adhere to my model. And you have to get a razor blade and cut the glue and hope you don't cut yourself because you were adhered to it. Did you know that's what God says we're supposed to choose to do with prayer? And so, Spirit-filled praying must be cultivated. We will give ourselves continually to prayer and the ministry of the Word. And so the Bible describes choices in prayer that God desires. And if nothing else, this is your brightest moment. You made it through the night with all the bugs and all the sounds and camping and the coldness and everything, and you're here this morning, you had a wonderful, fun time, and this is the one session that most people most listen to, and everything is downhill from here, because you get tired out and everything else. So, pros kartereto, it's a future active indicative Greek verb, which means from now on, we will not stop doing this. Did you know you only need two things to succeed in life? Get started and don't quit. Right? You know what you need to have the most phenomenal spiritual life as God designed it to be? Stick to this concept of cultivating prayer. Do you remember Jesus, his schedule? The disciples would wake up and they'd go, where'd he go? What's gone. And so they'd go out looking early in the morning for Jesus, and they would find him out, what? Texting. No. Doing his, I don't even know all the words. I don't even know all the things I'm on, Paul. What do you call that? Tweeting, poking, all those terms. What was Jesus doing? Jesus, who was God in human flesh, who was perfect, we just sang about. He couldn't be any of those things. And was infinite and immortal. What was he doing? He was praying. Why? Because Jesus was 100% human as well as 100% God. That's called the hypostatic union in theology. He was 100% God, but he was also he wasn't 50-50. He was 100% man. And the only way humans can make it is to pray without ceasing. And so we should not stop doing this. Okay,